Lately, I've become accustomed to the way the ground opens up and envelops me each time I go out to walk the dog, or the broad-edged, silly music the wind makes when I run for a bus. Things have come to that. And now, each night I count the stars, and each night I get the same number. And when they will not come to be counted, I count the holes they leave. Nobody sings anymore. And then last night I tiptoed up to my daughter's room and heard her talking to someone, and when I opened the door there was no one there, only she on her knees, peeking into her own clasped hands.
In the first several lines, Baraka establishes a conversational tone. The casual, simplistic diction and word choice contrast sharply with the bleak implications of the subject matter. Baraka begins by reassuring the reader that he is comfortably accustomed to the horrific idea of being swallowed by the ground. He describes the wind as broad-edged and silly, suggesting that the world around him has become meaningless and dull. The inclusion of the word music takes on an interesting connotation here. Usually, describing something as musical emphasizes its beauty. Here, however, the term seems to almost mock its subject. The ellipses at the end of the stanza further emphasize the feeling of hopelessness and emptiness, as the speaker cannot even manage to assign enough significance to his thoughts to consider them worth completing. This line stands alone as its own stanza and as a complete thought. Its dull, blunt structure shows the complete, devastating surrender of the speaker to his circumstances. He speaks of this state of mind as one he has anticipated but dreaded for a long time. In this stanza, the speaker describes his struggle to discern meaning in his life by using the stars as symbols. Each night he attempts to count the stars, symbolizing an attempt at quantifying the ethereal. Each night he gets the same number. However, instead of a comfort, this connotes just another incarnation of stifling monotony. Then, when he finds himself lacking any sort of cosmic map or guide, he counts instead the empty spaces that life leaves behind. However, looking at a starless sky, it is impossible to discern what would be stars and what would be mere blackness. Everything appears to be the same unconquerable dark. Therefore, the speaker cannot find comfort by quantifying his intangible existence, nor can he find meaning by looking at its intangibility. All that is left is hopelessness. This line's reference to song calls back the idea of music from the first stanza. However, instead of mocking the world's dullness and silliness, it seems to recall a past time in which music had real meaning. This makes sense if one considers Baraka's views about poetry. In another work, called Black Art, Baraka condemns the way that poetry, here symbolized by song, has become meaningless and intangible. He demands that people reclaim the true power of words and songs to turn them into literal weapons against injustice and existential despair. This stanza contains an abrupt shift in tone. The stanza begins, "and," giving the reader the impression that it is a sudden, spontaneous afterthought of the speaker. Then, for the first time, Baraka hones in on a specific time, plucking one individual moment out of what was previously just a monotonous blur. He mentions a physical climb, which could easily represent a sudden spiritual ascension or awakening. For a moment, it appears his hopes are dashed. There is still no one there to answer his quest for meaning. However, this time the ellipses at the end of the line are answered, and his thought is finally completed. His daughter is whispering into her own clasped hands, depicting an image of prayer. It appears that in her, the speaker has rediscovered several things: the innocence of youth, which contained the original vivacious music, a concrete identity as a father, and a spiritual meaning in the higher power to which his daughter assigns her own life's meaning. Overall, this poem deals with themes of hope, meaning, and spirituality. It initially has a bleak, hopeless tone, until the last stanza, when the tone shifts. However, the final few lines suggest not the discovery of concrete hope, so much as acknowledgement of the potential for hope.